Welcome to this ToolHound Learning Center video on using approval processes to bring a greater level of oversight to multiple types of documents. All documents need some sort of approval. The standard flow is to set a document ready to approve, in which case it's automatically approved. An approval process acts as a level of oversight for these documents. Approval processes can apply to purchase requisitions and purchase orders, service requests and work orders, transfer requests, and transaction requisitions. Approval processes can be set up for single or multiple approvers, as well as or alternate approvers at each level. To further customize approvals, they can also be set up with restricted visibilities so that different individuals are required to approve documents in different areas. And approvals are not all or nothing. You can set up an approval only for a single document type. Just because you choose to use approvals doesn't mean that you're obliged to use them everywhere. When an approval is required, as defined by an approval process, the appropriate user must log in, view the document, click on the corresponding row to indicate their approval, and save. We're going to walk through examples of two types of documents. In each case, we'll create and approve the document without an approval process. Next, we'll set up an approval process for that document type. And finally, we'll recreate the same document to see the impact of the approval process. In this example, we'll look at transfer requests. First, we'll create a basic transfer request. Next, we'll set up an approval process for all transfer requests being requested from a specific stocking location, then create the same transfer request again. Logged in as the counter user, we're going to create the transfer request from main to the do line tool crib. Next, on the catalog tab, we'll filter for lift, and we'll select a forklift and a scissor lift. We'll also look for an air compressor and some earplugs. On the selected items tab, we review the items and click Save. Next, we look up the newly created transfer request. We'll select Ready to Approve and click Save. The transfer request is automatically approved and ready to pick. Now let's look at the difference with an approval process. We start by clicking plus to create a new approval record, and we'll give it a descriptive name. Next, we select the document type, and in this case we're going to select a limited visibility to restrict only requests from a particular stocking point. While we could set a minimum document or line total for this approval process, we're not going to use it in this case. We'll only have one approver. Click plus, set the order to 1, and in the approval required by, select Winnie. Then click Save. Approvals are now required for all documents meeting the criteria in this approval process. Let's see how the approval process impacts the transfer request. So we'll duplicate the same transfer request as previously from main to the do line tool crib. We will select the forklift, the scissor lift, as well as the air compressor and the earplugs. We review the information on the selected items tab and click Save. Let's look up the newly created transfer request. This is where we'll see the difference with the approval process. When we set it to Ready to Approve, the Approvals tab shows the number of required approvers. When we click Save, we see that Approved is not an option for this user. The toolcrib counter user, shown at the bottom, is not on the list of approvers shown on the Approvals tab. We'll log out and log back in as Winnie. Looking up the transfer request and clicking on the Approvals tab, this user is one of the authorized approvers, so click on the Approved checkbox and then click Save. Today's date is entered in the Date Approved column. Returning to the General tab, we see that the transfer request is approved. If there were multiple levels of approval required, then all approvals would need to be completed before the document was approved. In this example, we'll create a purchase order without an approval process. Next, we'll set up an approval process requiring a single approver from a list of alternate approvers when a PO is above a specific value. Finally, we'll recreate the same purchase order with the approval process in place. Logged in as the counter user, we're going to click plus to create a new purchase order. It's for the stocking point due line, and the vendor is Acme. On the Details tab, we'll enter in our first part number for an air compressor, set the quantity ordered to 10 and the cost to $700. Next, we'll click plus below Add Detail to use the parts catalog to look up the part number for the pump with the 2-inch hose. We'll enter the quantity of 10 and the unit cost of $750 each. And we'll save our purchase order. Note the document total is $14,500. Back on the General tab, we'll click Ready to Approve, and when we click Save, the document is already approved with the sum total of $14,500. Now let's look at the difference with an approval process. We are logged in as Winnie, and on the approval process page, we'll click plus. We'll enter a descriptive name for this approval process, due line purchase orders over $10,000. We'll select the document type purchase order. The visibility will be set to the due line toolcrib only. And then the minimum document total, we'll set that to $10,000. So anything at or above $10,000 will require an approval. For this approval process, we want alternate or either/or approvers. Start by clicking plus for the first approver. We'll set the order to 1, and the approval required by will be the user Winnie. We'll click plus again, and we'll set the order to be 1 as well, so that means they're either/or or alternate approvers. And we'll select the admin user. And we can save our approval process. Let's see how this new approval process impacts the purchase order. So logged in is the same toolcrib user as before. We're going to create the same purchase order, and we'll select the same part numbers with the same quantities and the same costs. We save our purchase order and return to the General tab, where it shows the document total of $14,500, which exceeds our threshold for an approval. When we click Ready to Approve and save the purchase order, we see that the Approvals tab shows that there are approvals required. We'll log out as the counter user and log in as Winnie, who's one of the approvers for this approval process. We'll look up the new purchase order and click the Approvals tab. Here we see the 2 eligible approvers. Only the currently logged in user is eligible to approve a document, so we'll click in the Approved column to the right of Winnie's name, and when we click Save, the current date is inserted in the Date Approved column. When we return to the General tab, we see that the purchase order is approved as all required approvals have been completed. Let's review what we've learned so far. Approvals can be a single user, or they can be tiered and required to be performed in a sequence. Approvals can have OR approvals even if they are tiered. Consider where you'll need approvals and on which documents. Keep in mind that if approvals have been used, they cannot be deleted, but they can be made inactive if you choose to discontinue them. And leverage notifications to encourage quick turnaround times for approvals so that documents don't languish in the system. Thanks for watching this video from the ToolHound Learning Center. For any questions, contact our technical support team, and remember, subscribe and hit the notification bell.